Hey y'all. Hey. Welcome to the Octavia Butler mixtape course. I am Dr. Brianna Whiteside. And today we are talking about Octavia Butler's Patternmaster, which I know y'all ain't loving, but here we are. Y'all, we have made it to the last book of the Patterner series, and we have read together 6 books, I believe. And, it's been a treat. It's been a ride. This is the last book of the series. We do have to take a poll to see if we're going to continue on with the parable series or not. So I'm really interested in hearing you all's thoughts about that. But I promised the pattern series. Anyway, as we start tapping the screen while we wait for other people to come on, I'm super excited to talk about this book. I was reading the chat. I was responding in the chat today, and I want us to think about this book as it relates to caste. Not necessarily race, but caste. This is we are in this narrative, a hierarchical society. It is a slow burn. I ain't gonna lie. This book is a slow burn. But it is Butler's first published attempt at creating a universe. And so ultimately, there's no way I can save this book, but ultimately, one thing that we should always keep in mind as we're discussing the book, one, let's not compare it. Let's not compare any of the books, because then that's going to set us up for failure. But two, as we think about this book, which is the last book of the series, which is also a tough read, I want us to think about Butler's genius in charting her way backwards, right? Her genius in charting her way backwards. She built this universe. This was the first universe, or the first world. And then each book, she worked her way backwards to create a backstory. And if nothing else, I think that deserves a little bit of credit. But as I was reading this book, I realized that I hadn't read this book as much as I've read the other books. I have not read this book as much as I've read the other books. And I guess it's for a reason. If y'all want to come up and join the panel tonight, come on up, chapter 2 people, the man and the lady at the bottom. Let's chat about it. I want to hear your thoughts, your organic thoughts. I did hear some of them in the chat, but I want to hear from you. I want to hear what you think. And also you can tell me your thoughts so far on the overall series. I know this is one of the least studied series by Butler. Of course, a lot of people love the parable series down. I can't stand it. And a lot of people love the Xenogenesis down. That's okay to me. But this is my favorite series just because of the expansive universe that Butler creates. As I said, Patternmaster was her first published book in 1976. Teray was her man in her mind. Go figure. But yeah, one thing that I have prepared for the Substack, and if y'all not following along on the Substack, follow along. It's Dr. Brianna Whiteside over there in the Substack. But one thing I think I'm going to release this week is thinking about this as a Game of Thrones type of situation. Like, I don't know if y'all watched Game of Thrones, but when I was writing my dissertation on Butler's collected works, Game of Thrones was my escape series. And so as I was rereading Patternmaster, I was like, oh, this kind of feels Game of Thrones-ish to me. And so I think I'm going to have an article up on the Substack soon on that. All right, y'all, look, y'all coming up here or not? We discussing, we chatting, we talking, or we not going to talk? I want to also know, because I said this, and I guess we could do this while we're waiting for more people to hop on the panel. Do y'all want to go into the parable series?
I, I I like the parable series, but I don't know if I can emotionally handle it right now. Like I want to like I don't want to be a punk about it, but I don't know if I could. Like I do, but I don't know. I don't know.
I think it's Parable of the Talents for me. Like, Parable of the Talents is so triggering for this moment that, oh my God, I feel like I'm gonna need a drink or something.
I mean, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's like one of the books I always recommend, or the series I recommend for people to read from her. But I'm personally a little, I don't know. I'm just like, I've been in my 92% resting. So I don't know how bad this will trigger me. That's what I'm concerned about. And
Yeah.
I've already been having problems. I know this is also a me issue. I hate reading Octavia Butler because I get through this stuff, so I get through where I'm supposed to stop, and then I have to read other books. Well, other people don't write as complex as she does, and so I end up hating everything else that I read in between reading these books. So it's been really the last, I don't know. I've read 3 books since I finished where I was supposed to stop,
Okay.
and I've hated every last one of those books. And I can't tell if it's because they weren't as complex, or I don't know. I'm having a hard time.
Can y'all hear me first of all?
We can hear
Yes.
you.
Oh, God is so big. Oh, so big. Missed y'all real bad. Hey everyone, I'm back. I say yes because, and the only reason I say that is because I saw a TikTok, I think yesterday or the day before, that was like, yes, you may read dystopian fiction books like The Hunger Games, like Parable of the Sower, but in this time, it also makes really good sense to read nonfiction books that show.
Uh-oh. Dang. It kicked her out. Well, she'll come back up in a second, I think. So anyway, chat, while we wait for that to happen, are y'all saying yes? Y'all want to go into parables? Jesus Christ. Okay, you back.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so I hope I didn't say anything wrong, but I was just saying that you should read nonfiction books that show you how to either prevent what's stated in the dystopian books or to solve what's stated in the fiction books. And one of the books that the person listed was Parable of the Sower. And so then the nonfiction book they showed was how do you plant a garden? How do you um, survive in the wild. So I would say yes, if we do supplementary reading that answers the problem stated in parable, which is, it's the end of the world, or you're having to navigate a world that is falling apart. What do you do in that instance?
I think that's a good idea. I cannot promise that I can give y'all supplemental readings in my life right now. So maybe y'all can read that on your own. I don't know. I'm only going to sign up for the Butler part. But I do think that's a good idea. What y'all think in the chat? Because it's gonna spin me. This parable series is gonna take me to the king in a way. But if y'all want to get into her notes behind that. Maisha says she need a break. I kind of feel that way too, but I'm willing and available if enough people want to do the parable. So I wonder, can I do a poll on here? I'm never on here but to do this. So I don't know if I can do a poll. But oh well. Okay, we say yes to the parable. Yes. Okay. Somebody said break, please. Someone says what's left on the patterning series? Nothing. Next week, as far as the Butler series goes or the syllabus goes, that's it. We done. And that's all I originally signed up to do. But since since we have already been seeing that Butler was hinting at the parables, then we can get into it, or we can take a week break, and then get into the parables. If we take too much of a break, I'm not coming back. I just want to let y'all know that. I'm not coming back. I'm not coming back. Can we add the extra books to the chat in a Substack? Everyone can come with suggestions. Absolutely. You can add that in the chat for sure. 100%. We can do a week break after next week, or we can hop right into it. If we don't take a week break, we can hop into it. If y'all suggest something longer, I'm not coming back to do the parables. I ain't gonna lie to you. I can't take no more. Or alternatively, we can take the week break. You can start reading when we come back, you could have read the entire parable of the sower. So that gives you 2 weeks to read the book, and we'll discuss it one time. Week off. Some people said no break, no just a week break. Okay, I like the last option, to take the week off but come back and read the entire book. We can do that. Tina, what you think?
We should read the fledgling.
Okay, so we could read. Okay, listen, we can read fledgling. That's a dense book. God, that's also a dense book.
I know, but it's not as like.
Now, fledgling does snatch us out of the series of Butler. She only has one more standalone book, and that's fledgling. So we can read fledgling in between, and then we can hop into parable of the sower after we read fledgling.
Can we do the week off and do parable? I would like to get to exogenesis, and perhaps we do that before we do parable, or like I don't know. I feel like everyone's hesitant or reticent around parable because it's too close to home for us right now. So perhaps we take a break and separate ourselves from that fake reality because we're dealing with the real reality that she talked about. So let's go somewhere else. Let's try exogenesis instead.
Well, so the only issue there is that all of the books build on each other. So I want to continue showing you all the interconnectivity of the series. So if we jump to space, we're leaving Patternmaster, we're going to Xenogenesis, and then we're going to have to come back to Parable. When Parable is the next logical series, we can rip the Band-Aid off and go into it. We can avoid it. I just need to. I know we uncomfortable, but we're living in an uncomfortable reality too.
All right, so I guess we should. I guess the last option, which was take a break, and then go right into, and then we have read the parables, so we only talk about it for 1 week.
Yeah.
Are we talking about reading both parables, the sower and the talent, or
No,
just sour?
just sower. Sower's first. So if we take a break after next week, when we come back, I would expect you to have read the entire parable of the sower. Or we can break it up. It's really up to y'all. Golly, everybody pressed. We pressed. Okay. Let's get into the discussion, and then I will revisit this at the end of the class, okay? Because we 15 minutes and we still back and forth. All right. What y'all think?
Boy, this book was written by a Butler who didn't know her writing style yet, and it was so cheesy.
Okay.
And just even the first half of the book, let me be thoughtful and kind. I know we talked about last week about like Butler said you either have like a human or we fall back into our hierarchical standpoint, but my God, today, all we got in the future was no technological advancement, people who can read each other's minds and fight telepathically, and we are still in a feudal or like a master servant slave system. Wow, how dreadful is that? That's all I could think about was like just that. It just felt so we go so far and we still can't go far enough. And is this a question of human nature's base? Like, what is our standard level? Or is it we are only able to imagine thus far because we've only seen thus far? So to go any further would be something that just could not have been built by Butler yet.
Mhm. I like that idea because when we're thinking about Afrofuturism as this canopy movement or framework, a lot of the scholars suggest, like, yeah, we're reimagining Black folks into the future. And we're starting to see, even with that movement, that there are limitations. Like, there are guardrails to how far you can imagine, and it could be social conditioning. It could be so many reasons as to why we struggle with imagining Black folks and so far into the future. But I do like that because I've noticed, as even as I read more Black Afrofuturist authors, that there is a point that they can't go beyond because maybe their brains won't allow them to imagine that far. So to your point, I see that.
Well, the thing that I came away with reading the first half of the was that the Dora hatred train is valid,
Oh my
and
God.
that because I kept thinking about like how did we, they got to this point, how did they, how did they get here, and then it's literally the society that he bred. Like this is the fruition of everything he wanted to have.
Oh my
He
God.
got everything. I mean, I know he's gone or whatever, but I felt like this is what we were all like upset about with him, and it's all coming through because they all act like him now. So there you go.
But Doro was not even here.
Yeah, he was there. He
He
was. I'm
was.
saying Doro. He created Mary. Mary created the pattern. Everything that happened after the whole housing system, the caste system, the whole 9 yards. It's all Doro.
Oh my God. So we
Well,
gonna bring
actually,
this man from the grave.
actually,
Yes.
no. Let's tap into our scientific roots, babes. I'm a little stuffy. Today is my birthday, and I'm stuffy.
Yay! Happy birthday.
Thank you. Technically, it's not yet in America. I'm still in Asia, but yes, thank you so much. And I'm stuffy, but I'm about to push through because I'm about to get my energy explaining why Doro's default. Epigenetically, Doro is in all of his children.
Okay.
And we may be hundreds of thousands, well, not, I don't think we cross thousands, but we're hundreds of years in the future. And the being that Doro is may not have been transmitted or transferred to his children, but in fact, the way he acted, what he believed, if we talk about epigenetics in the sense of like it is turning on and off a gene, how he behaved was then in fact transferred to his children, and they passed it on forever. We continue to be our ancestors. We are our current ancestors. So therefore, ergo, we are seeing Doro in all of his terribleness because his children, the current pattern master, is essentially like him, but like a better version of him, I'm reckoning. It's still Doro. We cannot shake this man because his children are him.
Okay.
We are our ancestors.
Okay, so
And this man, this pattern master, as we know so far, is terrible.
sure. So genetically, yes. Epigenetics for sure. Point taken. However, at what point do we blame Mary, the creator of this said pattern, who's also kind of bred this feudal system through the pattern, right? At what point is it her fault?
Whoa, she's just a girl.
No,
Please.
shut up.
She's just a girl. So sorry. Don't know what that has to do with this right now, babes, but we're talking
So
about don't know.
lactose intolerance said Mary didn't make the pattern though, but she did accidentally, right? Because Doro didn't create the pattern. This was an accident. Cast our brains back to mind of my mind. This was an accidental phenomenon, right? A freak accident that actually began to work out for Mary's good. So, but we also know she is the holder of the pattern at the end of mind of my mind. She has a son named August. So we have to assume that once she passed, that next child, August, took up the pattern. And now we're so far into the future that now we got Rael, whose wife is a sister wife, and he unalives, please don't take me off TikTok. He unalives everybody else, right? All of his other siblings, so they wouldn't compete for the pattern. So at some point we have to blame Mary and her proprietary thoughts.
No. Yeah, like we can blame Mary because in terms of like what's happening, but the only reason Mary exists is because Duro did all that breeding. Because people like her, who had the ability to do this transition into pattern, they couldn't stand each other. They couldn't be around each other. They didn't have whatever else. He did this whole selective breeding thing to bring the right elements together
Yeah.
to create a Mary.
Yeah.
So if he had not interfered,
Yeah.
she might have been like, what was she calling herself? Emily or Iwana.
Oh,
She could have
Anyang.
been like her. She could have been by herself someplace, not bothering anybody.
Yeah. Okay. So
He
at what
gathered
point
them together.
does the current generation take some type of ownership? Because we
They
can
take
we
I
can
think
keep
they
bringing
take
it
ownership
back.
in their and what they do, but like because they're in but they also are in a society that is dictated like this is what's happening. This is
Yeah.
what you do.
So Doro is the creator, but they are the sustainers.
Correct. Yeah.
So, at what
Yeah.
point do we stop fully blaming Doro? It's easy to blame Doro. He did create it, but these patternists are sustaining it because they're benefiting from being at the top of the food chain until the clay arts come in. So, what point? And I think that's also when remember Butler said that she was making a comment about Black America when she was writing this series, and more specifically, she was talking about when she was writing Mind of My Mind. She was saying, I was making a comment about Black America, and I wasn't sure that I was comfortable about making it. She never says what it is, but she does say that in an interview. So now we have to ask ourselves, complicit in this system, Black and brown folks, that while the colonizers, colonial America, all of the people may have created the issue, there is some type of sustaining thread that we participate in. Where's the ownership? That's all I'm kind of trying to wonder. Because we can't keep blaming Doro, because they are benefiting and they are also participating and enslaving.
So I can't stay up here long this evening, but I just wanted to say real quick. So the clay arts cannot fight their genetic. They can't fight their DNA. They have to kill. They have to spread the. They have to stay alive, and in some of those instances, have to spread the disease to stay alive. So the patternists, they're kind of in the same. The way I look at it is that they are playing out their genetic makeup. They have to, try to perpetuate the pattern. It's something that's inherent in them to survive and to stay alive and to perpetuate the pattern. It's not, so yeah, Mary has some responsibility, but to me, Doro is really the ultimate entity responsible.
Yeah, but okay, ultimately, yeah. So there we can split blame. Like I can't let us scapegoat here, right? I can't, because yes, Doro was he created the problem, but the people who continued to persist and capitalize on the problem were those who benefited from it, the patternists. And even in
Right.
Butler's interview, she says that the patternists were horrible people. You wouldn't want to live in that society, right? And so at some point, they're intellectuals. They're not dumb. They have hive mind. At some point, we have to wonder, how are they complicit in this system that Doro created for them? Right? That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying, y'all.
I mean, I see what you're saying. Am I rocking with it? Maybe on like a lower level because
That's okay.
it's
That's
always going to be, anti over here. And I think the complacency from them, I mean, I don't know if y'all heard me last week because my service was so bad, but I was talking about innate. And for the first time, we see, because humans don't have innate features. That's part of why our evolutionary tract is the way it is. But one could presume in this future state for the clay arcs and the patternists, they are experiencing for the first time in our 300,000 plus history, innate trends. And so if we continue that thought experiment, what that means is, like you said, for the patternists, they are complicit. And I do wonder how much they could break the chain, because Mary was the first one to experience the She enjoyed the power and she could not deny it, just like the other patternists could not deny going to see her. They could not fight against it. And then for the Clayarchs, because they have, I won't say devolved, but they have evolved and they've branched off from humanity. They also are, I would reckon, experiencing a version of reality that they only have so much say in. So yes, they are complicit. And how would they know different if they have never seen different? Because again, it goes back to for the first time, humanity is experiencing a feature that we have not had. Like animals are innately mothers. You are not an innate mother because biologically you don't possess that gene. But the Patternists and the Clayarchs now possess genes that allow them to connect telepathically. So, and I said this last week, for the first time, they are also experiencing true free will because they could force against that option to break the pattern, or if they were a pattern master, say, I don't want to be a pattern master anymore, or so on and so forth. Or if they're Clayarchs, they could say, I want to go make friends with the patterns instead of trying to off them. But will they? And we don't know that yet. So I think the complicit piece is caveated with the understanding that these people, because they are still people, are experiencing a form of humanity that has yet to be done. So we don't know how long this reality for them will stay for the next 100 or thousands of years, and if it could be broken. Because the more time they spend in their complacency, the harder it will be for them to revert back to our original evolutionary process of we don't do things because our insides tell us to. If that makes sense.
Before we get to you, Veronica, I want to say something that was in the chat. Someone says this is the first time, or this is the most hierarchical that we've seen. But you do, in order to understand the hierarchy that was already being set up, you have to go back to Mind of My Mind. We had house masters in Mind of My Mind. They weren't called that. They were called the first family. And so when the first family branches off and goes to their own houses, they become house masters, and they become the seconds, right, to the new budding patternists. When you think about Lero, the artist, he was part of Jan's lineage. Remember Jan? She was able to read stones. I wrote an article about it on the Substack. He is part of that lineage. So while Jan had difficulty understanding dealing with the mental stability of the pattern. That's why Mary allowed her to do those learning stones. So when we see Lero in the first part of this book, he is part of the pattern, but he's a lesser patternist because he doesn't have like a strong mental command over the telepathic capabilities. Also, you have the mutes there. You saw the mutes budding in Mind of My Mind. Who else are we starting to see? So I want us to remember that we have all of the beginnings of this society in Mind of My Mind. It's just called something different. You just have to just read a little bit closer to understand the hierarchical system that Butler was setting up. Okay, Veronica. Hey.
Hello. So yeah, while at this point we are in this, we have the beginnings of it in Mind of My Mind, but at this point, the characters that we're witnessing now, I think the question of how complicit they are becomes a lot more complicated because they are so now in this system that is so much bigger than themselves. And I think we see that with Touré. He comes up against a number of things where he's questioning. He's like, well, I could do this to the mute, or I could do this to this person, but I won't do this. But I do wonder how long will he remain that way within the system that he's in, because he is also himself trying to survive in this hierarchical system and ensure his safety and his survival. So I think it becomes a lot more of a complicated question at this point than in Mind of My Mind, as complicated as it was then even.
Yeah, because we didn't have, everything was budding. At this point, everything has come to a head. We have the budding Clay's art, last book. We don't know what's happening. And now we see they're fully formed, right? So this is Jacob. These are probably Jacob's grandchildren at this point, right? Just thinking about time-wise, because this is the distant future. We have Teray, who's a schoolboy, but this is also the same school that ate a dragon in Mind of My Mind. I think that's who headed the school or was beginning to start said school to teach them about who they were and all of the things that they needed to know. So now we see that he has been in school for this amount of time, does not have any life experience outside of the school, things of that nature. Now we have outsiders, we have journeymen. So we do have extra characters, but I think that the hierarchy still stays the same. And I want us to remember that Butler's human contradiction idea that intelligence and hierarchy cannot coexist. So I think she made hierarchy a little bit more pronounced in this book because this is like a feudal society in a lot of ways. And of course, people are going to fight to stay at the top. And to be fair, I do want to say this. I will mark a middle ground. Both sides are victims of their own lineages, the Patternists as well as the Clayarchs. But my point in asking, like, where do they take ownership? Because they still are the dominant race, the Patternists at this point. Now they are getting killed off. I thought they was going to make me get off. They are being challenged by the Clayarchs for sure, but they're still the most dominant race. And also think about this. I know I had us read Survivor first, but when Survivor takes place, this is right after this war is going on. So they're taking place as this, they're taking root among the stars. Well, that's Lauren, but you know what I mean. They're going to space as this feud is intensifying in this book. So the only reason that they can go to space is because they have this human image to preserve. But the Clayarchs cannot go to space. They cannot. They're land animals, or land people. I shouldn't say animals. They're grounded to Earth in a different way that the Patternists are grounded, right? And so I just don't want us to give the Patternists a way out, because every time we give people ways out, we stop them from actual growth. And it's easy for us to say, Doro, he the bad boogeyman, and he is, but they are keeping up the boogeyman behavior. That's all I'm going to say.
I see your point about saying that they are perpetuating what it is, but I don't know if they have a model different from that, especially at this point. Like if you said this around Mary or when they're first starting it, they had different options or saw it. And now it seems like where they are in time, it's like this is what it is, or you are a Clayarch, like because the mutes, which are normal humans who don't have the pattern, lesser people who have pattern or have some power but are not as strong. I mean, they're all underneath the pattern. They're all underneath the Patternists. Like that's their society.
Yeah.
Like there isn't a third option. Do you know what I mean? Like you can look at different types of societies in the world globally and think, okay, I really want a society that looks more like this or more like this or whatever. They have two options. Either you are a Clayarch or you are part of the pattern.
Yeah, but also think about the hate that they're teaching in the schools, right? When Teray meets the Clayarch, he's never seen one. He's only seen one in the memory of a learning stone. So when he meets him, he's already being told, he's already been conditioned to believe that these are bad people. These are your enemies, right? And when they have this exchange, him and the Clayarch, and they're conversing, the Clayarch is trying to communicate. Of course, there are language barriers there, but one thing is clear, that the Patternists are bred and conditioned to hate the other, period, just because they're not.
Right. And I think that is, and I agree. So I'm not saying that my point is that I don't think that they're not guilty or they're not in there, but it's like I don't know how they would escape from where they are. Like what other things have been presented to them? Like the Patternists, they can't go to space because they, when they talked about that in Clayarch, like they had to have some this whatever. So they really can't leave the Earth. They are they have spread so wide and so like a virus themselves, and gathered everybody and everything into a specific type of structure within it. Mm-hmm. Part of that is your underlying theology and all the rest of that, which is what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. you would have to have seen something or feel like there was another option. Like he seemed surprised when they were like, "Well, you don't really have to kill them. You know, you can get these mutes under control, but you don't have to." Like he seemed surprised by that.
Mm-hmm.
So just even like some things that you we take for granted, it just feels like they built the society in such a way, and that's it. It's that or the clay art. Like there isn't a third option. Like there isn't something else that's being presented that's sustained that has a different process. Like what else is there?
So I'm wondering how this differs from conversations we have around race today. And it's for everybody. Because I see your point. I 100% see your point. But we're also having these same conversations around race. Veronica, you want to say something? Oh, I thought Veronica said something. It's complex. I cannot see this conversation in terms of race now, right? And I don't even want to get into that. I'm just saying. How is that different from conversations about race, about people being born into it, being bred to believe or conditioned to believe a certain thing about black and brown people, and then we expect them to do something different? Right. You're an intellectual. You know, you should know the difference between right and wrong. I think that is our stance on a lot of things. You should be able to evolve from the ways of your ancestors. But it seems like when we're talking about the patternist, we're like, well, how can they evolve? They don't get a pass in my book. They don't get a pass with me. Maisha, hey.
Hey, I just came to jump in real quick. I feel like I agree with you. Like, why are we holding the patterners to a different standard? They have the capacity to access the mind like no other being. So they should be able to go beyond what is already known to humans and be innovative about getting the best out of humans. But instead, they're getting the worst. They're doing the worst. They're following the worst. They're adhering to old hierarchical standards. And it makes them horrible people. And it just lets me know that Butler really doesn't think the best about humans, because she keeps depicting the worst of us, where there's no hope in this series. There's little hope. We're always making the worst choices. We're always doing the worst things to one another. There's a lot of trauma. It just, and this book is really poorly written too. It's bad, but I don't know. I feel like if we're going to be talking about the future, there has to be a group of humans that have grown, that are doing better than what we have done in the past. But instead, we're seeing humans that have the capacity to do better, and they're just a hot mess. That's what they are. They're a hot mess.
And I think caste is just kind of difficult to deal with because we're so used to dealing with race and ethnicity that when we start to think about caste societies, who had a book about caste? Y'all remember? I can't remember the black lady.
Yeah, it was Caste, Class, and Race by
Isabel
Oliver.
Wickerson. Isabel Wickerson. Caste, the origins of our discontents. That can be supplemental reading if y'all want to get into that, where she's talking about different caste systems, right?
Can I recommend, no shade to Isabel, can I recommend Caste, Class, and Race? I think I mentioned it like over a month and a half ago, by Oliver Cromwell Cox, because he was the one that first wrote about it in like 1946, or it got published in 1946. Isabel does refer to him like in passing because she was Shady Boots. She refers to caste, class, and race, but in a derogatory sense. But he did like the actual thorough research because he breaks out the difference between each of them. He starts with the Brahmins in India for caste, and then he goes to class, which is the Western or the European societal classes, and then he touches on race, which at the time was the 40s for Black people. And he's very meticulous in his studies on why they are not the same, and you cannot interchange them. The problem that Isabel did is she does what a lot of people do, which is like, oh, Black people are a caste. And Oliver was like, no, we have to be very specific when we say class, race, caste, because there's things that denote who falls into what. So I say yes to Isabel's because it's shorter, but I would also say if you have the bandwidth to read, Oliver's is like 600 plus pages, but his footnotes take up a good chunk of it because, like I said, he was very meticulous in his writing.
So you all can read that for free on Internet Archive. They got it for free. So if you all want to read that book by Oliver Cox, you can go ahead and read it for $3.99 and then maybe follow up with Isabel's book, or listen to it, whatever the case may be. I think that we should think more about cast in this situation because we're struggling with cast here, right?
I still think that it's like maybe I'm too much into Octavia Butler because I guess I don't give humans period that much credit for a lot of stuff.
Right.
So I just think that we just keep doing bad to each other. And the only difference I can think about is like, when you learn about something different, like how you explore or you challenge what is around you. And generally there is something else there's something else or another way that you are confronted with, that then you have to question your beliefs. That's how you change. That's how
Yeah.
think about things differently, right? There needs to be something else that you kind of see, and then you go into this whole thing of trying to like either justify with the way that you believe, or you question it, or you take a step back and say, "Am I really doing this?" Like you really need to see some other things. And the thing with the patternist is that, at least from what's been written, and maybe from her notes you may know more, is that it feels like the patternist took over the world, and this became the one thing, right? And the only thing that has challenged them is this clay art,
Yeah.
and them trying to deal with that. So like there hasn't been something at this point in the future, there hasn't been something that they can then look at and then say, oh, this is another way in which to exist. It doesn't have to be this way.
Yeah.
Like this system doesn't, like there's not another option.
Yeah. Yeah. And points taken for sure. Like you are absolutely correct. There used to be there used to only one image of humanness, and there used to be in the dominant class because up until this point there were only mutes, right? But now you have this invasion. I was going to say invasion of the body snatchers, but now you have this invasion of another person or another type of human, and it is threatening you. So one of the reasons why I was pushing back against us giving them so much grace, I guess, in a way, is because this is the same ideology in some ways that colonial people had, colonizers had about Black folks. Demonize them, they're barbaric, they're all of these things, they're bad. Now there is like an invasion, though they did bring us over here. I'm not giving them no credit, but I am saying the conversations are kind of similar once we get on American soil. They're about to take over. You have to take them out. This is why we're launching all of these different barriers to Black progress throughout history. And so, my first read of this Patternmaster series, I did not think any of this. I'm only thinking this now, discussing it with you all, because I'm not behind the ivory tower and you all are more free thinking people. And as I'm reading it and looking at the chat and listening to you, I'm like, oh, maybe I got this wrong a little bit. Maybe, they were not as great as I thought, because through the lens through which I was reading it through this, I guess, rose-colored glasses, I suppose, or they're reading themselves of Doro, right? And this read, which is probably like I don't even know how many times I've read the series, I'm like, yeah, those glasses have come off. I don't think so, and I think that Butler was right that they're horrible people, and you would never want to live in their society.
The other thing that I would say is that as far as the race scenario goes, the difference between the colonization of the world, the enslavement of people, caste systems, and everything else, was that, again, at the time when this was happening, there were other examples that did not have to go the route that it did. There was a choice between capitalism and money that felt like this was the only way, or this is what it is, because they came to they came to this country, and you had indigenous people who didn't participate in some of those things. You had other examples of it. They determined. So to me, it's like with the patternists, because there isn't indigenous people. There isn't another way of looking at what's happening to them. This is it. So to them to break out of it and to be like, I'm going to give mutes more rights, or I'm going to treat them like, not, beyond just my enslaved, because that's how they treat them, like they're enslaved. And I'm not going to do this because there's another way, when there's no example of anything. Like they have totally taken it over.
Who
What else is
who
there?
is the they?
The patternists.
I
The patternists have taken over in this point, they have spread that pattern all over the world.
yeah,
It's not just in the United States,
yeah,
people like it grew globally, it's all over the world.
yeah,
And so that means that now they have this whole system where there's a house master
yeah,
who does all this stuff, and they're doing all of this stuff or whatever else. And so based off of where you are, so it's kind of like, instead of it being was a combination, there's this caste system that if you're part of the pattern, you get to participate. If you're not, anything beyond that, you don't have anything. There's
yeah,
nothing there for you to do that. You
yeah.
got to get in where you fit in, pretty much. Or they say you're sewer rats or whatever that was they were calling them, like out there in the thing. But pretty much, if you're not part of the pattern, you don't really you.
You
That's
have
it.
nothing. But you're subhuman though. That's where I was
Right.
trying to get us. If you're not part of the pattern, you're subhuman. And even if you have the human image as a mute, if you don't have telepathic ability, you still don't belong. No new friends,
Yes.
right?
Yes, you're not different, right? And so your thinking is okay. So you don't have the pattern.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's hard for me to go like, how did you get like, there has to be another example, or at least a thought of there's another example, and
No.
it could be something else, but there wasn't.
Mm-mm.
So that's not saying that they were not, because I agree, there's some horrible people. Their society is horrible too, but I don't know how else they would break out of it. I don't know,
They've
like, okay, we're
also
being horrible. How am I going to come to something higher?
because they've also seen the horrific side of humanity. Like, remember when we were in Mind of My Mind, when these kids were burned and beaten to death and all the things, like they know that they do horrible things without the pattern. So now it just seems like it's more systemic or organized to do it with the pattern, because it's like, oh well, we have to do it. But inherently, when y'all were telepaths by yourself, y'all were horrible. The pattern just allowed you to do the horribleness in a more systemic way and call it,
But that was 400 years ago or 500 years ago. So like,
girl.
what I'm saying is like, it's not, if there was still Mary as the top person, I would say yes, but this is hundreds
But
and
they
hundreds of
have the
years past
history.
that.
They have the history. That's why they're in the schools. They're being taught this. They
They're
also,
not being, girl, they being told they were just nice
no,
servants
they not.
who got free.
No, they not. They know the history, because remember in Mind of My Mind, Mary is able, she opens her mind to them and she's able to give them an entire history lesson of who they are. And so she does this, and so they understand why we did it, right? Don't matter why you did it, but they understand why we were how we were, how we got this way. And now the pattern is supposed to bring us together, and it's supposed to be the thing that humanizes us, because now we are hive mind. If you're horrible as an individual, you're horrible as a collective. And they
Yeah, I'm not giving,
are
so
horrible.
I'm just gonna say this, I'm not giving the patternist a pass. I'm just saying that I understand why they're there.
Okay. June, July.
I just wanted to pop in about the cast, um, because I got that right away. And oh, let me see if I hope I don't lose my thought. So that's an intentional mechanism put in place by colonizers, 100%. And we actually participate in a caste system in America every day. We just don't realize it. It's in our schools via tracking. Our public schools, if you were placed on a track in a public, that's a caste system. uh, there's caste systems all through our culture that we participate in all the time. And the way that in America, we're kind of told a lie. Some of us, not all of us, are given, it's a lie for some of us, is the bootstrap theory.
Pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. That's true for some. Not true for everyone. There's the truth for some people is that they're born into a class system that they can never escape. And they will be born into that class system. I know I'm not necessarily telling anyone anything that they don't already know. They're born into a class system. They will have to live and survive in that class system. They will never be able to leave it. And it is a sad truth. And this is like really relevant right now to me because of what's happening in this country with what's going on with immigration and what this administration is doing by removing people from our country forcibly. So, and this is a reality that Americans don't necessarily have to see, that people in other countries see every day. And it's true in America too. It's just that it's easier for us to not realize it. So that's definitely a thing. So I caught on to the caste system right away. And I think that she does such a good job. I don't love this book, but I think she does such a good job of illustrating that, like with Teray, trying to like figure out like, well, like jockeying, like, if I do this, then I can get this position, and how it was like so important that like he realized that he was the son of Real. And then it was a big deal that he was like the full son, not like a partial, or he had the same mother as Real's sister wife, or and Currency wanting that position and make that all that kind of stuff. It was really interesting to me how she illustrated that that hierarchical stuff that can get you out of that caste system that he was in, or being placed into, because he was kind of traded for the artist. And so that was done so well, whereas maybe it made up for maybe not the best. I don't think the writing was that bad, but it just didn't make any sense.
Sure.
If I had picked this up as the first book, I would have never gone on. But it was hard to like pick up all the pieces, and but she definitely made that make like total sense and illustrated that so well. So I just wanted to pop in and say that. But and how even some of the stuff that she threw in illustrated, some of the cast stuff, and then how like the what is the like the I can't remember the name that Teray was the head.
The housemaster?
Yeah. The one before him, and how he was like weaker, and like knowing one's place in the pattern, and how they could tell like who was closer in the pattern and who was further away, like even that. It was really interesting. Anyway, that's my rant. I can rant about the cast thing.
Yeah.
Can I
Go ahead.
positive thought? And I really, really hope that my fellow classmates do get to class, caste, and race. You don't have to read the entire book because what he does is separate it out. So if you want to skip caste, you can just come to class. You can jump to class. So they're sectioned out. Can I posit a thought? So, and this is something I had never considered before, but the way he phrases is that we don't have a caste system in the United States because a caste system, which was created in India, is still common in India, it's a self-sustaining system. So you have your Brahmins, you have your untouchables, you have your et cetera, and you cannot move through the caste. So if you're an untouchable, you cannot marry up. If you are a Brahmin, you would not marry down. However, the difference is that if you are higher in the hierarchy, you could marry lower and you would bring that person up somewhat to your level, but it doesn't always stay the same. There were several thousand castes in India. However, the class system, he said, is denoted by money, essentially. Like if you're born a proletariat, if you're born a bourgeoisie, if you're born a whatever, and you can move between them. And in this instance, especially, well, in America, obviously, but also in the book, The Patternmaster, I think it is more of a class system than a caste system. Well, I guess it's a bit of both. And particularly because July made a point about like how Teray, it was almost like he was being bought and sold, because there was that one point in the story where he was auctioned off for an artist. And that to me felt like something of a caste system, but the entire time it was very much like, you are a patternist, regardless of whatever you do. It's just dependent on where you fall within the pattern, whether you're more powerful or less powerful. And I think that, again, we'll see what the end reveals, but I think that says a lot about how Butler really stuck to what she knew. And I know I keep harping on this, but literally she only imagined what she'd seen before. And I know this is Afrofuturism, and yet it still feels so sad that this is all we get, is that we still get the same old, even with these powerful beings. They can't progress past caste and a class, and they are indoctrinated from a young age. And we, or at least we don't see as readers, we don't see anything more than. And I also feel like it's going to be interesting when we get to the part where they're not technologically advanced. Like, yeah, they can read stones and read each other's mind, but you would think these powerful beings would be going further, would be progressing. But it seems like they kind of stalled out in this feudal system. I don't know why that is, but it's very telling to me that they've only gotten so far as masters and lords and servants.
Sure. And I think that the reason for that is that you cannot invent technologically without some type of spiritual help. That's why we get the gene traders or the Oankali in Xenogenesis trilogy. So we think about Mayan culture, we think about ancient Egyptian culture, the technologies that were used to build some of these things, we cannot replicate it, and everyone is wondering why. There had to be some type of assistance in some type of way. Now, I know I'm collapsing multiple conversations to get to that point, but there has to be some type of outside help to get us back to that type of technology. And I think that in this series, you don't have that extra thing. You said something that made me think of George Schuyler's Black No More. I can't remember what you said, but ultimately in this book of Black No More, they erase all of racism comes to an end because a scientist develops technology to turn all the Black folks white. Okay. So the black folks, all the Black folks who are well-to-do, they go ahead, they get this going under this scientific treatment and they turn white. Black society is no more. The issue is that everybody white now. So of course they have to create another thing to ultimately oppress each other. And so they come up with a notion or a saying that if you're too white, then you took the Black No More medicine and therefore you should be lynched. And so in this book, they're going around trying to lynch the too white people, but the people who are too skin is too pale. But then everyone starts tanning. So now they're selling tanning cream to bronze their skin a little bit more. So ultimately in that book, it's saying if you can't oppress somebody for one thing, you're going to find another way to oppress them. Revolutionary Healing. The name of the book is Black No More by George Schuyler. It's a satirical text. It's a very quick read, like 90 pages, goes fast. And so you said a lot, and I can't remember, but I should have been taking notes because I had a response, but okay, points taken. Where should we go from here? We have less than 30 minutes. We can go to the questions, or somebody can say something else. Oh, let me also, I'm going to keep hammering that they are horrible people. Tina, I love you. Because, and here is why. The reason why I'm thinking about, because BA in the chat, I think said, if we give them a pass, we have to give white America a pass too. And the reason why I can't give the Patternists a pass, because I'm thinking about, and this was if y'all read the Survivor article, first of all, they're doing cross-plantation body breaking. So they're having two mutes fight, right? So that you've seen that in Django Unchained. If you watch that movie, the Mandingo fights, this is what she's drawing at, that the Patternists are having the mutes do, right? And then we get to Selenia's story. But then when we see Teray, and this is someone in the chat said, well, maybe they're being taught to their superior. It's true that they're being taught that they're superior in the school, because there is a quote on page, and if you're reading the Seed to Harvest, it is page 680, where it says, this is Teray describing the clay ark. It says, the creature was male, now standing 3 legs and eating something with the fork. The clay ark was well muscled, tan, lean, human headed, and almost body lion. But in the rest of the quote, he starts to describe the clay ark body as a creature and a beast. And my thought is, of course, you are attempting to strip this body of humanity. The same language, because language is important, the same language that white folks use to describe Black people, to demonize them, creature, beast, spawn of Satan, whatever the case may be, is the same thing that Teray is doing. So they are being taught superiority, right? And I want us to keep that in mind. Now, I'm not saying that, I'm saying they're horrible. They bad. They're
I
horrible.
agree. I think that they're bad. I do.
Let me also read, thank you, Tina. Let me also read Butler's quote to remind y'all what she says. This is the author. She says, dang it, where's the quote? Okay, she says, in each Patternist book, I was trying to do something different. But overall, to gather these people, the telepaths, and start this community, that didn't work very well. If you notice, they are people who think they've won, so everything's fine. But they were not really nice people. The pattern is really pretty awful. You wouldn't want to live in that society. So when as you mentioned, you have these people who think they're one, they've rid themselves of their progenitor. We're free. We can do whatever we want to do. But that freedom, that power has caused you all to be horrible to the other inhabitants who could be marginalized groups. I saw somebody in the chat say indigenous groups, right? They can be the other. Whoever the other is, they are horrible to the other because you're not like us. They not like us. They not like us. And yeah, y'all. What else y'all got? Y'all, should we go to the questions? Have we exhausted this?
Yes.
All right. Let's go to, I feel like we didn't hit a lot of stuff. Okay. Let's go to literacy as power and resistance. I think Butler is really interested in literacy. And so it says, throughout Patternmaster, literacy, both traditional and telepathic, serves as a gatekeeper to power. While Patternist telepathy is presented as a kind of elite literacy, the Clayarch's lack of access positions them outside of the dominant cultural discourse. Consider how Butler's world stages a literacy war, not just over information, but over legitimacy, culture, and inheritance. How do competing literacy, psionic, oral, or cultural, shape political agency within the novel? What might this teach us about contemporary forms of knowledge production and marginalization? I think one reason why I like this book is because it shows you both stories at the same time, right? As we mentioned in a previous course, that we talked about the dangers of a single story. And in Clay Arc, we had a single story. In Mind of My Mind, we had a single story. Now we have two stories competing at the same time. And I think that that's important. But we're also having these hard discussions about marginalization and knowledge production as well, and also literacy, therefore bleeding into agency. So, how do competing literacies shape political agency within the novel?
I'm just going to say really quickly, because I feel like you explained it earlier really well. The fact that the indoctrination that takes, I mean, we don't see inside the school. We don't really know. He just tells us after the fact, like, oh, I was in school, and we don't know the subject matter. But it is quite telling that what Teray and his soon-to-be wife are taught, it feels like they're not learning like STEM, right? They're learning just how to be patternists, and that's it. That's all they know. And I wonder if that also lends itself to, like I mentioned earlier, like the lack of progress, because literacy should require critical thinking, which we're not seeing a lot of critical thinking. It should require an interest or an intellectual curiosity, which we're not seeing that either. The entire book up to this point is just him trying to get either free from his brother or how to stave off his brother, or like, it feels like Butler's saying when reading is taken only so far as here's what you need to know to be successful in your role, or here's what you need to know to fight against the other, that does a disservice to the people who are in society as well. So yeah, you can put words together, but you're not allowed to be creative. You're not allowed to come up with your own ideas. And I wonder, I don't know if she intentionally did that or what, but if the focus of reading or learning to read is just like how to be a good leader or a slave master, can I say that? It's very telling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that I was thinking about them infusing the memories of people in the objects, or being able to read the objects, right? And it came off the way that they were talking about it as entertainment, more so than, oh, this is some knowledge that you need to take in so that you can be better prepared, or you can do this. And I agree with her 1,000%. It doesn't seem like there was like, oh, here is, we've treated these mutes badly. It always seems to be like, this is how you're supposed to treat them, or this is what it is.
Yeah. In my mind, as you all were speaking, I was thinking about how our academic systems are set up, right? And how some things are main required classes while others are electives. You can elect to learn about Asian studies. You can elect to learn about Black studies. You can choose, but you will learn about this white studies, right? You will learn about the history of America, but only the white washed version of it. And so, as you were speaking, Tina, yeah, it's you just need to know this so we can say you know this. As you were speaking, Tina, yeah, it's you just need to know this so we can say you know this, so you'll have some type of awareness of it. But you can pick it up, put it down. What you don't pick up and put down is this pattern, is history and literacy and understanding who you are, because that is what's going to save you. And ultimately, arguably in Black literature, a lot of people, the argument is, we don't know where we came from. You don't know who you are. And so you do have this system of people who do know where they coming from, who do know who they are. And I don't know what Butler is trying to get us to. Will this change?
So you just mentioned academia. So in academia, you are rewarded for basically regurgitating the thoughts of others from a new perspective, but basically coming to the similar or same conclusion.
Yes.
When you look at from academia, if you challenge that, if you say, well, no, this isn't, well, here's another way to think about it, and it is a contradiction, they put you through the ringer and in order for you to be able to have that. So the thoughts there, so in academia, in order for you to be hugely successful quickly, you need to be able to pat whoever came up with whatever concept 100 years ago on the back over and over and over and over again, and then slowly come up with here's another angle, or here's another way to look at it, right? Because you are put down if your thoughts are contrary to what is widely held.
I give you that. Citing your sources. That's what we call it. That's what we.
Well, it's like you said, right? But if you're coming up with something new, or you're thinking about something new, and you cite your own source, well, your source is not valid. Or you search yourself, or this is what I came up from this because of this. You have to, or nobody's thinking in that term. So to me, it just feels like limiting again.
You're fine. Yeah, I agree. Someone was saying something? No? Okay. So ultimately, what we're saying and thinking is that whoever can speak the language, has access to the information, and that access to the information gives you a particular or a certain mobility and also a certain protection because you have access to said information and knowledge. And it's so interesting because when we see that moment between Teray and the Clay Arc when they're conversing, he's saying, "Do you know who I am?" The Clay Arc is they're trying to communicate over literacy barriers or language barriers, and he's saying, "Why do you have to kill?" And they're like, "We need more land," and they understand their history, right? So we don't see him talking much in the part we read, but we can see that they're knowledgeable enough or intellectual enough to understand their history. What I think this divide comes down to, and I don't know why I'm thinking about it, is this Du Boisian, Booker T. Washington divide. This talented 10th intellectualism versus do the vocational schooling, use your hands, type of education, don't leave the South. So we have this divide where two people are fighting, or two groups of people are fighting for their own societies or their own communities, but in very different ways. And each one of them are trying to advance forward, but the other is counterattacking their efforts to move forward. I'm on the side of vocation.
Because that was hot goss back in the day. Boy, they hated each other. Them hardy R's hated each other, rightfully so.
But I did want to mention something that came to me as you were talking about it, and as we talked about literacy. I do wonder, because we don't know what Butler intended for the future past what this book ends on to look like, but I do wonder if her including that one nugget, that vignette of him meeting the Clay Arc and them having a moment will lead up to a relationship building between the two, because I'm gonna assume up until Teray did it, there had never been a moment of a Clay Arc meeting a Patternist and not immediately one of them passing on to the other side.
Yep.
So that is indicative of, and we talked about it, but like of a change being possible. It just, how would it be done? And it would be in the face of indoctrination of, on both sides, this being is your total enemy. So I don't know what the book will end on, but if that is possible, it shows that Butler, even though we're stuck in this limited view, we're able to see past this limited view to like what it could be for our future.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to spoil the end of the book. So
And that's
So,
okay.
so one of the things when you just said that about the talented 10th and being in the hands or whatever else, one of the things that, and I will shape this into of different class systems and how they see it and how we are viewed. America talks about rugged individualism. You need to pull yourself by your bootstraps. You are individual. You can come over here. You could be dirt poor, and you as an individual are judged. Right? Is what your work are, what your situation is. That's the myth that's put out. But we are viewed, minorities, especially Black folks, are viewed communally. If one person does something, it is a reflection of all of us, right? So the argument with the talented 10th and, agriculture and being with your hands and all this kind of stuff was basically saying, I'm feeding into that system of thinking, and saying that we all have to do it. So like if we all become we all are like in academia or whatever it was that he was talking about from that standpoint, and we all out there in the field understanding how to grow crops better or whatever else. There is an urgency for us to be under one monolithic kind of thinking on one group. You see it over and over and over and over and over again because nobody is afforded the benefit or the privilege of individual. This individual did this thing. So like if somebody, something horrific happens, that's the way Blacks are. That's how they are. As opposed to that person did this, right? A kid does something untoward in school and pew pew or whatever. It's that individual child as opposed to the whole society did this. And so I think that is, again, one of the traps around this patternist and everything else. We all there is no opportunity for individualism. You are part of this community. You're gonna act accordingly, and that's what it is. So I just think that's it's bigger than just and the same thing goes when you talk about the civil rights movement. People talking about Martin Luther King versus Malcolm X. Like there's a camp, like you have to be in one or the other. You can't be in one, and you have to choose which way you're going. And it's never just A or B. It's way more complicated all the time.
Yeah.
We're never given that.
Yeah. Okay, y'all. Where we want to go from here? We got 10 minutes, and of course, I'm gonna do a poll to see where we're gonna land for the book. Because if we do hop into the next series, I gotta create a syllabus for it. So let's think about. Let me see if we have room for another quick question. Okay, let's do biopolitics and the clay arc disease. It says the revelation that Rael, the Patternmaster, is dying of the clay arc disease introduces a biological threat to the dominant class. How does Butler use disease as a destabilizing force, and what does this suggest about the vulnerability of seemingly invisible systems? Is illness in the text a tool for political disruption? We can think about the 1-9. And are the patternists justified in their response, or do their actions reveal a deeper fear of losing control? I feel like we were getting to this point earlier in the discussion, but I'm interested in the part of the question that asks, is illness in the text a tool for political disruption?
I'm going to go really quickly. Absolutely, babes. I saw a tweet 2.0 on Blue Sky that said, Europeans, they're the originator of the bioweapon because due to them not washing their legs or being clean, they spread diseases. And these diseases were technically bioweapons because they knocked out whole populations. And I think in this instance, it is political instability because the Patternmaster, he gets attacked by a clay arc and now he has the disease and he's the Patternmaster. So if your head can fall because of a simple disease, well, not simple, but like because of this, what does that say about you, as about your community? It's not as strong and fortress as you think it is, especially given that this disease comes from what they would consider lesser than beings. And I also think about from the perspective of, the one that the pandemic we are still in, and how that the impact of that across the globe, the world buckled. And especially here in America, we were supposed to go, stay in our houses, and we didn't do a good job of it because capitalism required us to be outside, to be working, to be spending money. And something like an invisible thing that gets you sick, being able to topple governments or to grind things to a halt, or in the case of the Patternmaster, to make the most powerful being in the world sick, that is truly indicative of how not temperamental, but how soft power really is, because it doesn't take much to knock it down. And this man has accumulated all the power. He ran through his family members like the Tomb Raider. He got his sister wife. He did all that, and yet here he is still at the behest or on his knees because of something that he cannot control, that he cannot fight off, that he could not telepathically ward off. And I think Butler does a good job of showing, like, you may be powerful and strong, but you are only as strong as your self, your being, against something as common as a disease.
Yes. And I also was thinking, like, I was thinking back to Blake, and I know we gave Blake a hard time. But I was thinking back to Blake and how he thought his intellectual or science was going to save him, that intellectualism will save you. And I also think about the arrogance of a lot of people during the pandemic, believing like, oh no, I'm smarter than this thing. My intellect will save me. And then your intellect does not save you. Your illness is an equal opportunity enforcer. It doesn't care about your bank account. It don't care about nothing, right? And so I think that there are limits to our intellectualism. There are limits, and we don't like to think about those limits until we brush up against them. This is also one of the reasons why, and I said this in an interview with Pace Magazine, where I kind of resisted Parable of the Sower for so long. Like, I didn't enjoy it. I still don't enjoy it, is because it was brushing against something that I had not resolved in my own life. And it was not academia, it was spirituality, right? And so I was like, yeah, I don't like this. And then when I started reading it more, I'm like, okay, I can see why I was so resistant. But even still, I had a certain mindset. Like, if I don't read this thing, then I don't have to deal with the complexities of my faith, right? And it showed me, like, no, you still don't have to deal with it. Or they're going to come deal with you in the same way that we see so many things that we don't deal with in society coming back home to roost. Any closing thoughts before I drop this poll? Okay. Hold on, y'all. I'm typing in the begin POS. I'm typing in here. You all should be able to, let's see, save that. Okay. Reading option. Okay, let me see how many time. I'm gonna give y'all 2 minutes, and y'all should see a poll pop up on your screen. Do y'all see it? It came up at the top. Let me know if y'all see it. It's like a little notepad with the blue check mark.
I voted.
Okay. So if y'all can vote, and what the majority says go, we'll go with that. Benji's mom said, I don't see it. I think it's right above me. On my screen, is right above me, top left. There's a little blue, it looks like a little blue clipboard, and there's a countdown right above it. Does that appear on you all panel? Where is that? Okay, thank you. So if y'all can go ahead and vote, we'll go ahead and get that started. Oh, Jesus Christ, Parable of the Sower. This was just so people can get their book if they need to get the book for the week after next. You'll have enough time to get it. What else I want to say? Let me see what I want to read. I don't even know. I think I'm pretty spent for today. Let's have it in one whole cloud. Well, we got 23 minutes if y'all haven't. It looked like so far we gonna take a break. Okay. And by break, okay, so it looks like people want to take a break and begin Parable of the Soul. What that means is we will discuss the entire book in one when we meet again. That's what that means. Am I clear? Is that clear? So we'll take a break after we finish next week, but when we come back, y'all would have had to finish Parable of the Sower. That's clear. That's clear. I'm good with
I
it.
just wanted to clear that up, that we meet next week to finish Patternmaster, then take a break the following week, and then meet 3 weeks later for Sower.
The whole book, yes.
Okay, got it. Okay. That's my preference. That's my preference. Thank you.
The whole book. So, okay, just keep that in mind. I want everyone to have enough time. It ain't a break. Well, look, do I need to do the poll over? Because I had a break, no reading on here. No, Benji's mom, we didn't finish Parable tonight. We didn't finish Patternmaster tonight. We finished Patternmaster next week. Do I need to do another poll because y'all wasn't clear? Because I said no break, no reading, and break, but start Parable of the Sower. I did say if it's longer than a week, I ain't coming back. And that's true. I'm not going to do it because I'm going to lose my momentum.
No, I think that's fine. I mean, I think that it's voted where it is. It was a big gap, and I voted in the wrong one. So there you go.
Okay. And also, just because we're not going to be discussing here, I will be dropping the information on the Substack. So I do still have a lot of information for the Parable books. I'm going to be dropping on both free side and paid side. And I'm still going to guide the discussion or your thoughts as we read. We just won't be up here discussing it. But then that means, dang. So we can extend the class to 2 hours that week if y'all want to. Since we'll probably have a lot. We'll see. We'll see how we feel. But we can prepare for a 2-hour class that day when we come back and discuss the entire Parable of the Sower. So I'm fine with that. All right, y'all. Well, we are out of time. Next week, we are wrapping up Patternmaster. Then we're on spring break, as some people said. And then we'll come back and discuss the entire Parable of the Sower. Clutch your pearls. Get your wine if you drink wine. Get your tea. I don't know what you do, but put it down when you need to put it down. That's all I'm going to say. Good discussion tonight. Ain't no break. Good discussion tonight. I'll see y'all next week, and also I'll see y'all on the Substack. Keep in mind, I did drop that link to the book that was suggested, so it is in the chat. The link to the free archive of the book. And yeah, that's all I got. Anybody got anything? Sound good? We good? All right, y'all. I'll see y'all. Good night.